Hello, Eagles and draft fans. Welcome to the Big-Legged Waistbenders podcast. I'm your host, Wannab, and with me today is Greg Hart. Once again, thanks for coming back, Greg.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me back.
Greg, he has a website at phillycovercorner.com. I highly recommend you guys check it out. It has all sorts of great next-level information on how to team build for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a topic all of us are quite interested in. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here together today. Also, you can follow Greg at Greg Hart PA at Blue Sky. And today, we are going to talk free agency on this free agency eve, the tampering eve, because we all know none of these guys have talked to each other yet. Right, Greg?
Nope. I can't wait for all the people 10 seconds after it opens up that they magically have deals done. It's awesome to see.
They make deals so fast. They haven't talked to each other. They don't even know each other yet. It's amazing how they get those deals so fast. So we are on tampering eve. We are here to talk some free agency. We're here to talk a little bit of Eagles needs and how that ties into free agency with an eye towards the draft as well. Right now, we're in supply and demand phase. What's out there? How can we get it? We all know what the needs are on this team. We can debate on what is more of a need versus what is less of a need. But we generally all kind of have a good idea of the needs. It's just how do we fill them with our allotment of resources? And Greg is with me here today to help me out with that. Greg, before we get rolling, would you like to talk a little Jordan Davis contract extensions?
I would love to talk some JD. I think we're both on the same side of big JD fans.
Yeah, definitely. Some people are going to see the contract extension and the agent is going to announce the average annual pay. And the agent is trying to look good for their future clients. So they're going to announce the last 3 years of the deal, which is technically the extension. But we all know that the way Howie looks at it and the way the agent's going to look at it when he talks to Howie and the way Howie is going to present it when he presents to Jeffrey Lurie, his boss, how much he's actually paying Jordan Davis, Howie is going to average in that fifth-year option. Part of the reason why Howie uses the fifth-year option is to keep good players. And he uses that to average out the extension with that fifth-year option to get to a more reasonable number for the organization, but a number high enough on the extension so the agent can say, hey, look at how I paid my guy at the top of the market. I looked at like the top 6 average annual salary current defensive tackles in the NFL, and Jordan Davis is making slightly more than half of them maybe on those 3 years. That 3-year extension part. But if you factor in the 5th-year option or the 4th year in the deal and average it out that way, it comes out to maybe around $22.7 million a year, which would put him at the bottom of that list of the top 6 highest paid defensive tackles, none of which had a 5th-year option averaged into their deal. So in a weird way, for the next 4 years, we're getting him sort of under market. And that's not taking into account the fact that the salary cap goes up every year. The agents know this. The players know this. They know if they sign a deal in 2021, Vita Villa, the big hulking defensive tackle from Tampa, you can make an argument he might be a better player. He certainly was at one point. I don't know if he still is, but you can make an argument that he might be a better player than Jordan Davis. And look at how much less he's making than Jordan Davis. Well, he signed his extension in 2021. In 2021 cap dollars, if you extrapolate that to the current cap in terms of a percentage of cap, he would be getting paid almost $30 million a year. So the players are aware of this. You know, they want their future security, guaranteed. They want to sign that deal. They want to get the bonus money, and they know that the cap is going to keep going up. The market's going to keep going up. And 5 years later, it's going to look like, if they're still playing well, underpaid. And 5 years later, when the new guy gets his contract, it's going to look like he's overpaid. And yet, as fans, we see this happen every year, and we still overreact to it.
Yeah, you had such good points. I wrote on our free agents, I don't know, it's probably like 6 weeks ago or something like that. If anything, I overestimate the contracts because a couple reasons. Like everything you said, the cap goes up, so there's natural inflation. And that's just how it works. The best comp for me on JD is Aleem McNeil, who signed in December 2024. So a little over a year ago. And he signed for 3 years, just under $25 million. I thought that was the floor of Davis. So I really thought, I think I put it at 375. Like, yeah, you could maybe say Aleem's a little better, but I thought at a minimum it's 375. So it came out 378. It's probably one of the contracts I got closest. The thing that shocked me though, is the guarantee money. So 65 of the 78 is guaranteed. When you look at Howie's contracts, usually 2/3 of the contract value, the total contract value is guaranteed. And it makes sense because Howie typically is doing 3 years. He doesn't want to go too far out. Also allows him to maximize the void years. That third year is usually fictional. Like he can get out of it after 2 years. So it makes sense that 2/3 of it is typically guaranteed. This is really like we haven't seen the cash flow by year, but JD's contract is effectively a 3-year deal. Like, I mean, they can get out of 13 million of it. So, to me, I think that says two things. One is they have high confidence in him that he's going to be around a long time and they don't mind paying him. Two, my guess is JD probably wanted more and his market was probably more. And what they did is traded some guarantee for that. I mean, if you can get 385 with 50 guaranteed or 375 with 65, like what's a player do? Like you have faith in yourself, you're going to have another contract, you'll make up for it and you'll take the extra 15 guaranteed. So I think it's a good deal both ways. And someone just posted, by Friday, it's going to look like a good deal. And that's how it is. Remember when Howie extended Devontae and he got out in front of the market that year when you had just had the murder's row of wide receivers coming and it took a week before it looked like an amazing deal.
Now, I can see some people are concerned that he's not a pass rusher, and they're so used to that school of thought of you don't pay the nose tackles, quote unquote, the guys who stuff the run. You pay the guys who rush the passer. And so I could see why they're a little concerned. But he was like third or fourth in unassisted tackles of all defensive linemen in the NFL, third or fourth in run stops, like tied for second in passes defended. Batted balls is a better way to say that because he's so tall. And now that he lost a little weight, he can jump too. So that's a factor. It's hard to throw over top of him. He doesn't rush on third down. He's probably going to start after this contract extension, if not this year, then next, once either Ojomo or Jalen Carter are gone. And he's probably going to get more sacks to justify this number. Now, will he ever be a high pressure rate guy where he's hugely disruptive at the snap? Might not be. Might not be his ball of wax. But he's such a good athlete and he's so large. He could be the cleanup sack guy if you put more of a pass rusher next to him. He got in on 5 sacks basically last year. And he didn't get immediate high pressure on any of them. But 3 or 4 of them were still very impressive plays. Like he was chasing guys, down the line of scrimmage and, sometimes tackling athletic quarterbacks. So I think there's more than one way to look at it. He can take on double teams. When he's single teamed, he usually can eliminate 2 gaps. And today's NFL, the run game is becoming more and more important. I keep harping on this almost every podcast I'm on lately. Third down is important, but you also have to get the third down. And that's what he does.
2 years ago was when you started seeing the shift in the NFL of the return of the run game. And it was perfectly timed with Howie being ahead and signing Saquon. The 2 high defenses are taking passing away and we're rotating back. So, yeah, I mean, he has a ton of value and you hit it. It's like, what is it worth being double teamed or taking 2 gaps? And now you have a plus man somewhere else, right? I think his pressure ability is underrated. Is he Jalen Carter or whatever? No, but he's solid all around. I think it's funny. He was underappreciated for a long time. And obviously his draft capital and Kyle Hamilton choice in the draft will probably always tag him. But like he's been appreciated. He had a really good year. It's just a smart signing. He's super dependable. And I think he's incredibly underrated for their scheme.
Agreements. So we should probably stop being that dead horse because I'm sure it's all people have been talking about for 24 hours. And it's all I talked about for half of those 24 hours. Shame on me. I needed to prepare more for free agency. But I'm sure Howie Roseman's prepared. I'm sure Greg Hart here with me is prepared. Greg, what positions in free agency or the draft would you be targeting? How would you go shopping right now out in free agency and the draft to fill those needs?
My favorite thing is roster construction strategy because there's no single way to do it. And we all have needs and you balance it across free agency and the draft. There's two off-season events aren't independent. So I talk a lot about it. I actually wrote recently on it. It was, Kenyan Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, has been the by far runaway first pick leader in all the consensus mocks. I'm lower on him than most. I don't hate him. Like, I mean, he's a fine player. My issue on it is more about the relative importance of tight end in the draft versus free agency. And by that, I mean, um, look at what you can get in free agency across positions. And we talk about this a lot. We'll get the cornerback. You can't find one. You have to draft them. Tight end is the opposite. It's the cheapest position. There's always good options out there. Every year you look, I mean, last year the top guys went for 10 million, which is super cheap for a position. We're spoiled from last year because that class, which is going to go down as an all-time great class, everyone, performed pretty well right from the start. But generally tight ends are the slowest developing position. That makes sense. It's, you got to perfect being a receiver and a lineman. So for me, tight end would be number one on my list. I know you said you like this tight end class because there's a lot of depth. I think that's a good way to put it. But I think it lacks the top end. Like, I think it's really dangerous to say bet on everything and get your tight end, given that we have 0 tight ends to get it in the draft. If I was Howie, that's top of my list to go get. Like, I would 100% get my tight end 1 and maybe 2 in free agency.
Makes sense. Like, if we don't extend Dallas Goedert, which I'm doubting that we do, but it's possible. If we don't extend Dallas Goedert, then yeah, let's get a tight end 1 out there in free agency, maybe even a trade. Mayer from the Raiders.
Yeah.
I know he's a
Michael
popular. Yeah, he's a popular idea amongst Eagles fans, and it makes sense, especially if it only takes like a 5th round pick to get him at this point.
You're talking my language. I would give a 5th round away for any, like, if you have a player that fills a need, give a 5th away. Like, the hit rates are so poor. It makes a ton of sense. Top 2 guys I'd probably look at. My number 1 is Charlie Kohler from Baltimore. He's got a little bit of love recently. I've always liked him. I liked him coming out. He was on my draft board coming out. A lot of people pan him because in 4 years in Baltimore, he has just over 400 yards receiving. Look, sounds terrible, but you got to remember the year they drafted him, handful of picks later, Baltimore drafted Isaiah Likely. So they drafted 2 tight ends same year. They also had Mark Andrews. So, like, this is back when we were wondering what Baltimore's doing by collecting every tight end in the world. But Kohler, great locker room guy, known as a leader, credited with really working on blocking. He is a plus blocker in the NFL right now, better blocker than Dallas. And small sample size, but when you look at his pass catching, he's beat Dallas in explosives. Yak drops nothing. He's solid all around. You look at a draft class, and a lot of times you forget to compare it against past ones. I still say, even though everyone tested great, and these tight ends did test great, but I think we just get used to it. Guys test better every year, and you kind of forget the defenders on the other side are also testing really well. So it's a little bit of an arms race. I still think this class lacks top end guys. When you look back at Kohler, when he was at Iowa State, his receiving production rivaled anyone in this class. The only ones that had a better receiving profile from him was Vanderbilt, Eli Stowers, who can't block, Michael Trigg. A lot of people like Trigg. There's off-field stuff with him, so I don't think he would be on the Eagles board. And our favorite, Tanner Koziel. So kind of forget how good Kohler was in college, and he just hasn't had opportunities in Baltimore. So he'd be my number 1 guy. The projections on him are around $2 million. I think he goes for more than that, but even if it's 4 or 5, that's a deal. Like, absolute deal. He's solid all around.
So Charlie Kohler's an option. Trading for Mayer from the Raiders is also an option. Like you said, the 5th round hit rates are so low. Why not give one away, even if it's just for a 1-year rental of a player, if that player feels a need? I'd say also, in addition to that, the way Howie Roseman can conjure up a 5th round pick whenever he seems to want to, whether it's a comp pick or whether he's trading back and creating future 5th round picks. He's a 5th round pick machine. So as easy as he generates them, that's even more reason to give it away for a 1-year rental. I'm going to check out Charlie Kohler some more. When he came out in the draft, I don't think I was quite as good yet at judging the tight end position. Can he block? Because that's going to be the first question everybody has.
I've changed how I evaluate tight ends a lot. I've always leaned towards, I just want them to catch. One of the pass catchers. And that's great. I can like that. That's not what the Eagles are going to like. So, like, I can put that aside. I actually like Stowers, but he's never going to fit what they want. If what we think Mannion's offense is going to be, it's going to depend on blocking even more. Another guy that's interesting is K. Dotton. He's going to be more expensive. He's probably in the $8 million range. He is really close to Dallas's production profile. You're basically getting Goddard with Dotton. And again, it's 8 million. That's cheap for guys. And then, what I'd do is I'd still look in the draft and I'd get a guy. I just would not be shopping high. I think these guys are going to be overdrafted this year. We both talked about Tanner Kozio. I'd still love to get him. I've been high on him. The other one that we didn't talk about before, Yana's Riley Nowakowski. This is a throw out for everyone that wants a fullback. He plays a lot of fullback and tight end. I think it'd be a good tight end 2, 3. He's short, good speed. He's versatile. He's underrated as a pass catcher. So I think it's probably something the Eagles are looking for, and they have a couple fullbacks or fullback, type candidates, but he'd be another option out there. And you think about it, he's going to be one of these day 3 mid-late guys. Why not? That'd be another good ad. So that'd be my recipe here. Like, go get a Kohler or Otten, add another guy or 2 in the draft.
Makes sense. What are you thinking about safety and free agency this year versus the draft?
When I looked at safety, I don't think it's a great free agent class. And this is one of the reasons I said there's no way Reed is coming back. I think his market's going to be higher than we want because, it's not a great class. I think anyone out there with some talent is probably going to be bid up a lot. And the other thing, when we talked on the draft show, safety is probably the strongest position group in this class, or one of them at least. There are a lot of good options in this class. And, you have Makuba, and I know he was like in and out last year, but, you bank on him. I would probably get a vet, at a minimum deal, and then go get one of these guys in the draft somewhere late day 2, early day 3. There's going to be a bunch of guys out there that you can go get. And like I said, you have Makuba. You're looking for a second safety.
I know a lot of people are concerned about Makuba being next to potentially a rookie, a second-year player and a rookie together at safety. But the way Makuba came along a few games or so before he became injured, I'm not terribly concerned about that. I think there's enough leadership in the secondary, and I feel like Makuba showed enough improvement that they can afford to go young, especially if they have a vet in the room as a backup, and they still have Quignon, they still have Jean, they still have the same safeties coach who's now probably the pass D coordinator, I'm assuming. You'd like to have Reed Blankenship's leadership back there. He's kind of the traffic control guy, helping new guys learn the scheme. You always hear about how the new guys appreciate Reed helping them out. But I have confidence in Makuba. I think he'll be okay. He dramatically improved as the season went on and showed me that he's a guy we can go forward with.
Howie's been making moves, and he's obviously freeing up cap. We'll see what JD's frees up. I still think no matter what, all the moves that Howie makes, he's going to have room for 1 or 2 mid-market free agents. We're just not going to have all that space. And the thing you forget about is it doesn't matter how much space you have. It matters how much space you have compared to everyone else, because other people will outbid you for people. They're going to have room for a free agent or 2 that's kind of middle of the pack. Howie's already said he's going to be playing the comp pick game again. So, you're not going to go sign a ton of big names out there. So, yeah, when you look at the big safety free agents, I just don't see it. You drafted Makuba for exactly this reason. I think they thought they were going to move on from Reed. Reed's going to be expensive. I think a lot of Reed's value comes from turnovers. I love him as a player, but at what point is he getting up there? He's not as young as he used to be. So let Makuba play. That's why you drafted him. I'm just going through our late round 3 pick on. So from 98 on, you have guys like Zakee Wheatley from Penn State, Dylan Kilgore, who I love, South Carolina, Michael Taffy from Texas. I would take all 3 of those. And those are going to, if the boards are right, are going to be available pick 98 or later. And then you have 7 guys in the top 100. If one is outsized value, great. I think they're going to be able to get a guy late day 2, sometime day 3, pair him up with Makuba, and move on. They're not going to spend 10 a year on a free agent safety.
Makes sense. So what's your next position?
All right. So tight end, first one I'd go get. Second one, probably O-line depth. I do fully expect that they're going to double dip in the draft on O-line. I think it's a decent tackle class, but they're going to have to get one high. I think it's a decent interior class. The board just may not work out for them, but I really do expect that they're going to get a tackle high. They're going to need another guy anyway, and it really depends what they see with the guys they brought in last year, Steen's not going to be signed after this year. Obviously, Lane is probably done. We'll see what Mailata and Landon's time is, but right now they have 4 guys at top of market on the O line. Back to our free agent cost projection, interior has gone up a lot in pricing. I think he's going to be above 15 a year, so they're going to move on from him. So, and obviously they've had a lot of injuries. Draft a couple, but Carolina's Brady Christensen, love him. Has played all 5 positions. He did get hurt end of year, so I think his readiness for start of the season may be in question. But he'll be around this year. He's cheap. I think he just did not want to leave Carolina this year, but for whatever reason, he's just not on the top of their depth chart. They had some injuries. He went in and played this year and played great. So I would go get him. You think about a guy like that, he's not young, but can literally fill in at any spot on the line. That's exactly what the Eagles need. We talk about Fred, anyone that wants to be a starter, they're not going to be here unless the Eagles have a surprise retirement or they trade someone. So yeah, they're just not going to be able to go get a starter, nor should they. But I would definitely go get an interior guy. Brady Christensen would be top on my list there.
Can't say I've studied the free agency O-line options. I have been looking at the fellas in the drafts. I'm slowly catching up to you, looking at all the different offensive tackle prospects. I can see pick 23 being an offensive tackle. That's certainly a strong possibility. And we all have our favorites. There's some upside guys that maybe have not the floor you would like to see at pick 23, but they have some upside. And there might, if we're lucky, be 1 or 2 decent floor guys as well who also can step in at future offensive tackles. I could see, like you're saying, future offensive tackle and maybe an additional position on the offensive line being addressed. At least 1, if not 2 of those top 4 picks. And, a Brady Christensen fellow, like you said, could round things out nicely. They do need some depth.
Yeah. When I was on your last pod, I think it was end of January, and I know I said, hey, right now, if I had to pick the Eagles pick at 23, I said Georgia's Monroe Freeling. And boy, if times change, because he was, I think he's probably around 40 on the big boards now, and he is now being talked about in top 15. So probably kiss him goodbye. And this is an interesting conversation. I am enticed by the upside. I love his size, his mobility. Not the cleanest player. He's only had 16 starts. Love Monroe. I think we can probably stop thinking about him. I think he's probably OT1. I'd probably have him as OT1. I wouldn't argue if you had him at 2 or 3, but usually 3 tackles go by our pick anyway. So now we're on to the other guys. So it's, I know you caught up on Blake Miller. What are your thoughts there? I'd be super happy with Blake.
I have been pleasantly surprised by his tape. I've only watched his 2025 tape so far. And as Devin Jackson from the Philadelphia Inquirer pointed out to me on the last pod, he wasn't challenged very much in 2025. And I maybe should check out some of the 24 tape where he went against better pass rushers, guys who are in the NFL. So I'll be doing that next. But so far, I like what I see. I'm not blown away by the upside. I could definitely see more upside in Monroe Freeling. But I actually enjoy watching Blake Miller's tape better than Freeling. I actually feel like he's a safer option. He started multiple years now in college. He has a lot more starts under his belt than Freeling, whereas Freeling has the testing athleticism. Now Freeling's athleticism does show up on the field as well, but I feel like Blake Miller debatedly has more of a natural athleticism to him than Freeling. He's not going to eye pop as much, but he connects more on his blocks. He doesn't recover as much. He doesn't have the extreme quickness that Freeling will have to recover if he's starting to lose on a block. But he's not losing to begin with on blocks very often. He's not going to have some of Freeling's most eye-popping run blocks out in space, but he also seemed like a more consistent run blocker to me than Freeling. He stayed connected to his target better as a run blocker and as a pass protector. He had strong grip and good hand placement. I don't love the idea of taking a debatedly early second-round talent at offensive tackle, but it's a premium position. It's a difficult position to fill. The supply and demand is quite a challenge at offensive tackle. So I could understand taking a Blake Miller 23, and I wouldn't have a big issue with it. A lot of years, I wouldn't like that type of pick, but Lane's probably on his way out, and there's not a whole lot there sitting at 23 to get too excited about from what I can tell. Just like you said, Freeling is going to be going well before our pick at this point. There'll be other guys going before our pick. And so it's not a very top end draft at premium positions. It's a good depth draft at premium positions at several positions. You'd like a top end player in the first round. I don't know how realistic it is to always get that at 23, because at that point you're kind of looking at second round talents. So if you get a high second round talent at a premium position that's very difficult to fill at 23, I can live with that. I can take a Blake Miller at 23. Now, this is pending my viewing of his 2024 tape, which I still have to watch, but I suspect I'm going to be okay with Blake Miller.
I'm interested to see your view after 24. I thought he was as good in 24. Yeah, Devin's right. You know, it's always a concern with the ACC. Like you gotta like pick through and find the guys. It's not the same as the SEC guys. So, but I think he was as solid week in and week out, like very few pressures. I think his athleticism is underrated. Blake tested really well. Probably a lot of people didn't realize how athletic he was. You'd probably want him to put a little weight on. He was just under 320. He's, fairly tall. The guy I love is Brian O'Neill for the Vikings. If Lane surprised us this year with the cap hell that the Vikings are in, call them up and go trade for Brian O'Neill. Brian O'Neill went to my alma mater, Pitt. Blake actually reminds me of him a little bit on size and athleticism. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be Brian O'Neill, who's a top of the league tackle, but he has some similar traits. So I like him. He's still projected in between our first and second pick. I think the only one that had him high is Daniel Jeremiah. I think he had him right around our pick in the kind of mid 20s. So I would take Monroe over him, but I didn't have a big gap between them. I would be happy with Blake. I do think his ceiling is a little lower than Monroe's, but yeah, just floor. He could start day one, I think, where Monroe probably needs a little bit of work.
Yep, that's how I see it as well. So cornerback, the barren wasteland in free agency.
Yeah, what are we going to do, man?
I don't know. Dory Jackson, maybe you bring him back. He's another year older. He might be 30 now. And that's usually not a good number for NFL cornerbacks, as I'm sure you know very well. He did improve as the year went on, but most of that improvement was schematically Vic Fangio giving him extra help. The whole reason why he started putting Quinyon Mitchell on the boundary was so that he can roll safety help to the field side over top of Adoree. Towards the end of the year, it even started to get a little predictable against the Buffalo Bills. I'm not sure if you remember, there were a couple big plays uncharacteristically deep down the field on us. Now, overall, defensively, we played well. But I looked at the plays, and it was cover 8. That was where you basically man up Quinyon on the weak side at the boundary. You have the safety on the opposite side of the field as a cover 2 safety over top of Adoree to allow Adoree be like a defender in the flats and not be a man or an off-match corner. And then the safety over top of Quinyon, instead of him helping Quinyon or instead of him taking receiver over there, he'd help the safety from the other side of the field. So you're pushing all the help towards the Adoree Jackson side of the field. And it was a great win-win because A, Adoree gets more help, and B, it's one of Vic Fangio's best coverage calls just on the whiteboard, just straight X's and O's on a page. But if you go to that well too often, guys who coach for the other teams, they get paid too. And we started to see late in the season, teams were expecting cover 8, and they hit a couple big plays against us. Uncharacteristically, 2 guys who got burnt in that game against the Bills, Reed Blankenship got beat once, and Cooper DeJean got beat. And the plays were designed specifically to screw with them and force them to make a tough decision while in cover 8 coverage. So, yes, cover 8's a great call. Yes, it was great that Vic found this way to protect Adoree, but we probably need to find a cornerback that can carry their own weight a little bit more, especially with Adoree Jackson being 30 years old now. Who's to say that he's going to be the same player this year that he was last year? And it's a wasteland out there on free agency every year, and I'm sure you would speak on that.
Yeah. So, start off with, man, what are we going to do? I tried to put my positive hat on here. So I'll come with my plan. So you're right. Free agency is tough. It's tough every year. Good corners just don't hit free agency. If they do, they're old. So who's top of this class? People want Jamal Dean, great corner, 29. It's probably going to be 15 plus million. Ante Tower, he was a super popular trade deadline guy. I'm lower on him. I think you like him. I think he's better in the slot. Again, 27. He's going to be 15 to 20 million, somewhere in that range. Every guy I'm like, good, way overpay. Like you just keep hitting that. The prices are going up. Cordell Flott is out there, Giants. I actually liked him coming out. Thought he was going to be a bargain. I'm surprised he didn't get tagged. He's 24. He's probably going to be, probably around 10. I think he's good. That wouldn't be a bad name. We'll see what his market is. Those are probably like the big names out there. Now, here's what I would do, and mine's maybe a little non-traditional. So on the free agent front, on Tarek Brown, not a well-known guy. He's going to be fairly cheap. He's projected sub 5. I think I have him at 5.6 somewhere in there, which is very affordable. He's an outside guy. He will give up completions, but the thing, I think there's a decent floor with him. He tackles well. He gives up no yak. So I think he's not a bad option. He's way better than anything that we had that wasn't Quignon or Coop last year. So Monteric Brown would be one I'd go after. So the other one, the non-traditional one, not a free agent, Juju Brents in Miami. I'd pick up the phone and try to trade for him. He's been hurt for 2 years, like barely played. The Eagles did meet with him in the draft when he came out. They've shown interest. I think he fits exactly what they want. Like, he's an outside guy. He's athletic. He's really good. It's just the butt on him is he just hasn't been on the field. I went through all the transactions on CBs to find guys like him and what they cost in free agency, and they're literally like a day 3 swap, a fifth for a sixth. It's basically free trade. Miami's a mess. They're in full rebuild mode. Their cap's a mess. They're not going to re-sign him for 2 reasons, like either the money or just not willing to commit to a guy that's been hurt. I don't think you can bank on him, but I would absolutely trade. I'd go back into the Howie mode of just collecting a lot of upside guys. And right now the well's dry. Like, Keely's proven he can't play. Jacorian did nothing. So we really have nothing. So restock it. I would probably go look to sign Monteric Brown. Like I said, in free agency would be cheapish. Try to trade for Juju. And then the draft, I may be a little more optimistic than I was the last time. I still think you have to draft CBs high. But the way I think about it, last time I was on, I said there's no way the top guys are hitting us. Jermod McCoy was my CB1. It wouldn't be crazy. So, you look back half the years at 23, you're picking usually 2 go before it, sometimes more, but like generally 2 go. I would not be surprised if Avion Terrell's above him. Like, he's solid. He, put on a show at the combine. Jermod did not test, has been out a year. So it would not shock me if he fell. If he falls, like, we just talked about OT, like, love to have a tackle, but Jermod's there. Like, there's an option. So I would not be surprised. I put out some of my round 1 predictions like last week, and one of them was, I think Jermod is going to get at least close to our pick. So he could be out there. And then day 2, I know you went through all these, would love your thoughts. I still love Joey and Neal. I know you like him. I know you think maybe not the best fit for Vic's defense because he's a better zone guy. I just think he has a really high floor because of his tackling and physicality. And then the other guy I like a lot, he's a little slight, but Malik Muhammad from Texas. I think he had pretty good film against Ohio State and their receivers, which, it's usually when you're looking at CBs and they play Ohio State, it's the first game you put on because if they can play there, they can play anywhere. Gave up some catches, but super competitive, has a mentality you want in a corner. I love the finger wagging, cocky guys. That's what he is. Super mature guy. Those are probably the day 2 guys I would look for. So in one of our 3 picks, if those guys are there, like, grab one of them.
I definitely like Julian Neal. The more I watched, the more he grew on me. These guys are in schemes that are not exactly the Fangio schemes. So the challenge is seeing play examples where they will be doing what they will be asked to do as a Philadelphia Eagle. The more I watched, the more examples I found of him showing that off-man footwork that I like to see. And I didn't feel like he got beat over the top much. I felt like his long speed was a little better than people were concerned it might be. He did show at the combine that his long speed was adequate. He's one of those runners, if you look at his 40 time, he gets faster. He's a build-up speed guy. So it makes sense to me that he might only run a 4.49 or whatever it was, 40, which is not a bad time historically. It makes sense to me that he would run that time. I do pretty well not getting beat over the top, as his flying 20, the last part of his 40, is faster than the first part. So the testing kind of matches what I was seeing on tape, where long speed wise, it wasn't that bad. He could play an off man and not get torched. Now, the short area quickness is not ideally what you want, but hey, he's a 6'2" corner with 33 plus inch arms who plays smart, who has his skills and his footwork nailed down, and he's physical. Guys like that, if they run anywhere near 4.5, and he did, they usually don't last very long especially with all the zone defenses played in the NFL. They're going to see that long physical corner and want to gobble him up. So unfortunately, I doubt that Julian Neal is going to be an option for us in the second round unless we trade it up. I doubt that Howie's going to trade up for a corner unless it's a really big name that really drops due to injury. I doubt that Howie's going to trade up for a corner after, in his mind, already stocking cornerback a couple years ago in the draft. The way he thinks, he's more defensive line focused than we are. So I don't think that Julian Neal is likely to be an option for us. The fellow you just mentioned,
Malik Muhammad from Texas.
Thank you, Malik Muhammad. I did watch him, and at first I could see why not only you, but several people are pretty darn excited about this guy or just enjoy watching him. He's feisty, he's physical, he's got some short area explosiveness and quicks. He can come downhill and break up a ball or make the tackle. I kept looking game after game to find the examples of him in off-man coverage, and I didn't see quite the coverage skills that I felt fit our scheme. Now, he ran a pretty good 40 time. He ran like a 4.41, but he was kind of the opposite of Julian Neal, where he didn't have the build-up long speed. He had more that 10-yard split at the beginning of his 40 time that was real impressive, that I felt was knocking his 40 time up. So I felt like his off-man footwork and change of direction combined with maybe him being faster in his first 10 yards as opposed to his last 20 in the 40, I felt like maybe Malik is not a strong fit for our scheme. I'm going to definitely watch him a little bit more soon to make sure I didn't write him off too quickly because a lot of people like him.
Your points are right. I mean, there's not a guy outside the first couple that doesn't have a butt on them. And that's the thing with CBs. Like, very rarely do you have a guy available on day two where you just feel solid about them. Like there's always something, whether it's speed or size or fit or whatever. You look at everyone that could be, again, projected, or second pick or beyond that. Like Keith Abney, like I was okay. I wasn't super high on him at all. Keontae Scott, I actually liked him. He's not a CB. He's really probably a linebacker. Definitely a nickel. And Igbenison, I really wanted to like him at Iowa State on rewatch. I've lowered on him. He'll look great, and then he'll just get disconnected. On the last pod, I said there's a little bit of Keeley to him. He will just lose a guy on breaks. Traden Stukes ran well. Just go on and on. And I know you were bigger on Damani Jackson. I liked him last year. I had trouble watching him this year. So, but it's tough. Like that's the point here. You're definitely projecting some of these guys if you don't get the top guy. So my hope is Tremad's there. We have a decision to make depending on who else is there. I think he's top 15 talent. And after that, I think it's smart to take one, but you're not sure on any of these guys.
Yeah, I think what I would do at this point, other than bargain basement shopping in free agency, like you said, I think I would take pick 54 and move up just to get not necessarily a top notch corner, but just someone that I'm comfortable with. More than likely, I think you and I both feel that Howie Roseman is going to sign Jalen Phillips. We don't know that for certain, but we think that there's obviously a strong possibility. It's in Howie's DNA to keep 3 or 4 good defensive ends. Jalen Phillips made an impact when he came here. You can see how his market might not be what you might expect because he has the low sack totals. He has the injury history. So maybe Howie will be able to afford him.
So I always look at expected value and comparable players at picks. Our pick at 54, the average CB type of player you get is actually Monteric Brown, who I said I would probably go after in free agency. Like he's solid. Like, he could do worse, but he's not world beater. Marco Wilson was our pick at 68. That's the typical player. Like guys like Martin Emerson, Andrew Phillips. These aren't world beating names. It's every time I look at this, like you got to get them high. So I think trading up, if a Hood falls or a Cisse or a couple guys that could be worth moving up for. I have trouble taking them with our pick at 23, but if we do something like we did with Coop That wouldn't be a bad idea.
Sorry, I went on that Jalen Phillips tangent. I think the way I was tying that in was if Howie is going to sign Phillips, then at 54, we don't necessarily have to use that pick at defensive line. Defensive line goes early, as I'm sure you know. But this year, it seems like 54 might be a half decent spot to pick up a good defensive lineman. But cornerback is so much harder to fill than defensive end. I know all the defensive end truthers don't like to believe it or feel that way. You and I know differently. So I think if we sign Phillips, I'd move up to try and get one of those prospects who look like they can be at least a solid CB2, second best outside corner. I think that would be my move. I'd like to go defensive line at that spot, but supply and demand.
Yeah. It's also like, again, panning out where we started, like, what are the strengths of this class? I don't love the top of the edge class. They're not going to take an edge high either, but I think at any of our picks on day two, you can get an edge that I would like. I've talked about two Michigan guys, Derek Moore, who probably will be near our second pick, Jashan Barham, who's converted linebacker. He's projected early day three. I think he'll go higher than that. Both of those guys I would like. There's a bunch of names in there that you can go get. I don't think they need to get one high. I think there's going to be one available, and play to the strength of the class. It's a good edge depth class. So, I think they'll have their shots. And even I do think they will sign Jalen Phelps. I think the only way that falls apart is if his market is just way too high. I think I projected him at 25 a year. I think if he didn't have the injury concerns, I think he'd be near 30. So we'll see where it is. I think Howie will have a top number that he walks away from, but I do think they will bring him back. But even if they do, it's smart to get another guy. Expensive to keep. Obviously, they have Jalex. They'll need to pay him. And we'll see if they can. Nolan, who I expect them to pay. And if they bring back Jalen, it's going to be a 2-year. They'll sign him for 3. It'll be a 2-year deal. They're going to need another edge anyways. It's by my ideal draft, probably be tackle, CB, edge, and then pick what you want on the next one, like wide receiver or flip edge and wide receivers. I think that's the strength of the class and where the value will be.
Yep, and I guess that takes us right on up to wide receiver. Another barren wasteland in free agency, I assume. I haven't looked at it yet, but I just know how it goes. If you're a mediocre wide receiver, you're going to get paid. And we're up against the cap more than usual this year. Howie does not have nearly as many tricks up his sleeve with the cap as he usually does. Most of his roster is on $1 million base salary, and half of those guys are getting big bonuses on top. There are fewer large base salaries where he can convert some of that to a bonus and create cap room compared to his previous years.
It's only Michael Carter. It's the only one. Like I would say all of Howie's deals are pre-restructured. They're restructured from the start. They're all mins with option bonuses. So yeah, you're right. They're not going to sign a big guy. Romeo Dubes is a popular name just because he's coming from Mannion's system. And I think he'd be great here, but he's going to be 12 to 14, somewhere in that range. Are they going to pay 12 to 14? Maybe. They're going to have room for, it's around that 15. They bring Phillips back. They're going to have room for a guy. Is it a Dubes? And then you're going lean everywhere else? And you kind of have to think of this two ways. Our favorite debate, keeping AJ or not. AJ's not going anywhere until June 1. So my assumption is they would have a deal worked out, know it ahead of time. But you're going to have to make decisions in free agency before you know that. I always look at teams that are a mess, that aren't going to be able to afford their guys. The Vikings are right at the top of the list. Jalen Naylor, he's not an AJ replacement. He's a slot guy. But, again, Mannion's offense wants a yak guy that, does the work you need. Like Jalen Naylor would be a great option. He's not going to be that expensive. Pick his number, but probably 7, 8, somewhere in that range. But outside of that, it's tough. You're going to be overpaying for a guy that's okay. It's another position. It's really hard to get. And they're going to need a guy. But yeah, you trade AJ, all bets are off. You got to find a guy. So then you start looking higher in the draft. They're not going to trade him until after the draft, but they should probably know if they're going to. Then you start looking at the draft. It's a good class. The guy I've been watching, who is, a lot of people have him as wide receiver 1. I like him a lot. There's just a little bit of injury concern, is Jordan Tyson from Arizona State. He's been dropping some. I don't think he gets anywhere near their pick, but wouldn't be crazy if he did. Jordan Tyson, if you're sitting there at 23, he could be a top end of the league guy. Concepcion is out there. I don't know if he'll be BPA in 23, but I think he'd be a good receiver to pair up. Omar Cooper, they'll have a shot at him for sure. I think those are three names you'd go after high. I think there are guys later in the draft. Guy is so antithetical to what I like is Jacoby Lane. I don't like these big contested catch guys. I think he's better than that. I don't think he's a contested catch guy. He is intriguing to me, especially where he is. Projection is probably somewhere in the 80s. Again, like I would say like 70, 80, that's where your chance of getting a guy that barely plays or provides no value is as equal as getting an average, above average pro. If he's there in the 80s, somewhere in that range, like you take him. I think he'd be an upside pick, but can't bank on that. A couple guys later I like. Cyrus Allen, Cincinnati. Good route runner, twitchy, play inside and out. Brennan Thompson, Ole Miss, he's small. Another twitchy guy. So there are names out there. It's another good wide receiver class. I think they're going to have options.
I'm a little hesitant at 23 with wide receiver in this draft. Casey Concepcion, I've only watched him a little bit. I see an explosive guy. I worry about his hands. He's like effortless explosive. He looks like he's jogging and he's just going, and everybody else around him is just going in slow motion. His ability to accelerate and decelerate, he's dangerous.
Yeah, it is the hands though. Like 13% drop rate. It was pretty high. So it's, it wasn't as bad last year, but yeah, it's a concern. Like hands are hands.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, they just don't have great hands technique. I guess if you're talented enough and you get away with maybe making that occasional routine drop because your hands aren't placed the way they should, maybe you never put in the proper amount of work on it you need. I'm sure it's not easy. I'm sure it's much harder than I make it sound. But I worry about drafting a guy at 23 with hands issues. Hart Cooper Jr., as you mentioned, another talented guy who's probably going to go in the late first. Again, I'm just a little nervous about his profile. He's an explosive receiver. If there's an offensive tackle on the board or a cornerback, I feel a lot more comfortable in this draft class taking that at 23. Jermod McCoy falls due to his injury and not testing at the combine. If Blake Miller's there at 23, I'm more comfortable with those decisions than wide receiver. I could day two at wide receiver, but it's we're talking about all these needs. And there's just only so many picks we have. I do like the idea of Brennan Thompson, the guy who ran the 4.2 at the combine. Usually, I'm not a huge fan of these ultra-fast, diminutive wide receivers at the combine. I glanced to him a little bit. I loved his ball tracking. I liked his hands. It'd be nice to have a field stretcher.
I mean, he put up big games against UGA, Ole Miss, Texas, Arizona State. It's, he's small. I mean, he's 5'9". I agree. 40's super overrated. He's way better than that, though. Like, he's not just a straight line. It's like you can't dismiss that production in the SEC. Would not be a bad pick. I always try to think of like other options. Two names that are out there that not free agents, but potential trades. Roman Wilson, who the Eagles did visit with. He's in Pittsburgh. I lived in Pittsburgh a long time. My wife is a Steelers fan. They're a mess. He's, for whatever reason, not on their depth chart. I think you can get him pretty cheap. Like, does he solve all of our problems? No, but I think he's as good of a replacement as John. The other one, I think I'll have few fans on this. I've always liked him since he came out. But when you mentioned drops, the first thing you think of is Chargers Quentin Johnson. Yeah, he's had problems with drops way better last year. And also for the Mannion offense, you think about he can play inside and out. I think he's a mismatch in the slot. Great yak guy. Does have drops. I don't think he has a future in with the Chargers, and you could probably get him for not, for something that's probably not expensive.
It is an idea. I could see the Eagles just knowing what I know about the system that's coming in. They might go for that power slot, a guy that is he a small tight end or a big wide receiver? A guy that can block and maybe make some yards after the catch. I could see them going for a guy named Josh Cameron from Baylor, somewhere early day 3, maybe late day 2 even. He's like 220-ish pounds, physical, really good after the catch, punt returner type. His route running is not the greatest, but if he's a role player in the offense who's a good scheme fit and you need that blocker and that yak guy, Cameron has really strong hands and he catches a lot of contested balls. So I could see him being a decent option, and he's not an ideal wide receiver 1 or an ideal wide receiver 2, but he might be somebody who fills out the room.
So let me ask you, the rumors are still out there. I still think they keep AJ, but probably not as certain as I was last time I was on. If you move on from AJ, how do you replace them? Like, a lot of the names I just threw out, like, they're good options, but they're not an AJ. replacement. It's one of the reasons I like Quentin. I mean, I think he can provide some of that size. I mean, what are your thoughts? You could obviously trade him and get someone back, but I also wonder, like, why would a team trade a receiver to get a receiver? Like, I don't know. What would you do?
There's no easy answers, and I don't think anyone is going to like my answer. I consider wide receiver the second most important position on the position pyramid. Quarterback is number one. But in today's NFL, if you don't have a stud wide receiver, you're in trouble. Your chances of contention are not great. We all saw the effect that A.J. Brown had on this offense for 3 years when he was a stud. He was a top 3 receiver in the NFL. And in my opinion, he was not number 3 in 22, 23, 24. The games where he was close to 100%, he was a game changer. You know, they could run their highly questionable offensive scheme that was very basic and get away with it because they had him. AJ this past season on the tape was not AJ from the 3 previous seasons. He just wasn't. And I kind of saw this coming because he struggled increasingly to stay healthy at the end of the season. 23, he did not finish the season. 24, he was in and out throughout the year, and he almost didn't finish the season. He just barely made it back for the playoffs and probably wasn't, his old self until the Super Bowl. And then this year, he wasn't his old self the whole season. He missed all of training camp, and you could just tell he was afraid to block. He was afraid at the catch point, which A.J. Brown, he's usually not afraid of cornerbacks at the catch point. He twists them into a pretzel and tosses them aside. But this year, if there was a lot of air under the ball, it seemed like he wasn't good at tracking the ball because he was afraid of the collision at the catch point. So that tells me there's something wrong with him physically, and I know it's really hard to let go of a guy who carried so much weight for the franchise. We wouldn't have gone on this run the last few years without A.J. Brown. I just think it's time to let it go, and it's hard for a lot of people to accept. But after he complained multiple times on social media last year, they started forcing the ball to him, and it made our offense worse. He might have a bounce back. Physically, he might get better and temporarily be that number 1 guy again. But how long is that going to last? If he's not that number 1 guy, he's still a good possession receiver, a possession plus, but is he going to accept that role?
Everything you said is right. To me, it comes down to the trade comp. When you look at other comps, guys at his age, like I think there's one that fetched a first round pick. So I'm assuming it's a day 2 pick. And for me, even if he's not quite the same player, you're not replacing him for whatever the cost is. It's going to cost you more than that. So, and then if you trade him, must be after June 1. So you're not getting a pick back for this draft. So you got to use one of the picks we have. So it's just interesting. If you can get a good return, I mean, on anyone, like if you get a good return, it makes sense. Like if we get a first plus, like, yeah, do it. Now you need a plan. It's probably one of the most interesting positions. If you're keeping AJ, my Jalen Naylor in free agency, get a slot guy, or just take one of the guys who just ran through. I agree. It's probably not round 1. Take one of the day 2 guys and still have 2 top guys. You have Devontae. If you plan trade AJ, it gets a lot harder. I'm not going to go get in a free agency because you can't spend that much. You aren't going to have the pick this year, so you got to use one of the picks you have. So like now you start looking at using one of the premium picks. That's why if you know you're going to trade AJ, I'm like, go get Quentin. You could do worse. Like, would you rather have Quentin plus a first and a day 2 pick or something, whatever they get back for him, or would you have AJ?
So AJ, he does not have much guaranteed money after this year. His 2027 salary and beyond has very low guarantees. And I think that's part of this whole situation. I think he wants more guarantees. He and Howie behind the scenes are not coming to an agreement. So I believe that that's a big part of the reason why AJ is interested in moving on to another situation. We all know Howie ain't just going to give him away. That's not in Howie's nature. He's going to get a pick or 2 of some sort, and they're going to be solid picks. So whatever team that's going to acquire him, they're going to have to guarantee another year or 2 of his salary, at least another year. And so I think that it's possible. The Patriots, I think AJ would like to go back there. They have a stable quarterback situation. They will probably work with him on the salary, give him some of that security. I'm unpopular with my AJ Brown takes on his level of play and whether or not we should stay with him. I'm also doubly unpopular on what I would do if he's leaving because there's all these needs more than usual. There's only so many premium picks. I would delay offensive tackle. If A.J. Brown's leaving, and if I feel like wide receiver is the second highest position on the position pyramid, I'm getting a wide receiver. Blake Miller's a good player, but the impact of losing A.J. Brown, we felt some of that last year, even though he was here because he wasn't the same guy. Just losing a half step in your game had a huge impact on our offense. If you lose A.J. Brown completely, maybe you need to use pick 23 a cornerback, either in a trade back or a trade up, and you might need to use pick 54 at wide receiver. Because if you wait until late day 2, the pickings are going to get rapidly slim at wide receiver. We keep seeing these deep wide receiver classes year after year after year. These guys are coming out more skilled and more prepared for the NFL than they used to be years ago at that position. And we keep thinking, oh, you can get a wide receiver later. Then late day 3 comes and it's the scrap heap, So we might need to use pick 54 wide receiver in this draft, pick 23 a cornerback. And I just probably angered every fan listening to this podcast. But that's what I would do because there's no easy way out. Lane Johnson is here one more year. There's a small chance that Miles Hinton will figure it out. There's a small chance that Cam Williams will stop getting those holding penalties and be able to pass protect. There might be a couple guys on late day 2 who might have some guard tackle versatility. Maybe you go to Fred Johnson and say, hey, Lane's gone in a year. We're not going to draft offensive tackle at 23. Let's pay you high-end OT backup money / low-end starter, and will you stay? Maybe Fred Johnson would agree to that. I know it's not the most exciting plan, but hey, the whole thing is next year, if Lane is gone, we have that draft that we could use at offensive tackle.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Like I said, if you know you're going to get rid of him, you probably have to use a high pick. It's hard to say first round must be OT because you just don't know how the board's going to fall out. The thing I'll be pretty convicted on is our top 3 picks must be premium positions. We went non-premium last year. I think it set us behind on cap. Love Jihad, love Makuba, but the positions that are cheaper to get. So, you think about any mix of cornerback, tackle, wide receiver, edge. Those have to be the top picks. Mix them up any way you want. I'd be good with that. My only issue is in the first round, when you look at who's going to be available, wide receiver, like I said, I don't think Jordan Tyson will be there. If he falls, I would take him. I think that Denzel Boston, not super high on him. You have KC, you have Omar. I just don't know if they're going to be BPA. You get in the second round, there would be guys there. I'd be comfortable taking someone there, but you just don't know if you're going to have a second rounder hit and actually replace him. So probably need another option there. It's just what they're going to have to figure out. You probably have to go get someone in free agency then.
You're not going to replace 2022 through 2024 AJ Brown with one person. You're not.
Yeah, that's why whether AJ stays or goes, I would trade for Quentin Johnson. I would collect a couple of CBs, whether it's Juju or Monteric in the draft. Still would love to take a tackle high. We'll see if that works out for us. We started laying the what could happen. I think they're going to have to get creative and look across not only free agency and the draft, but who are guys out there you could trade for? Because I think some of these are going to be hard to fill. Just through free agency and the draft.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be an interesting free agency. I'm sure Howie is going to be scraping the bottom for most of these positions, but like you said, he is going to have to dip into some low to moderate cost free agents that might mess up his comp pick formula potentially a little bit because we do have a lot of needs. You can't go into the draft with all of those needs. Thank you so much, Greg, for coming on. Thank you for your insight with the free agency class, with roster management, with your draft insight. Please follow Greg at Greg Hart, PA at Blue Sky. Please check out PhillyCoverCorner.com. It's got some great stuff on that website that you are not going to find anywhere else. I love that little tool you have. I posted it lately on Blue Sky with the little calculator showing over time how position value changes, looking at free agent contracts and the draft. I thought that's a nifty tool.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate the shout out. I built that because I wanted to see positional value and trends and everything. And I got tired of doing it in Excel. So I ended up building it. I actually think it's probably one of the best free player valuation, positional value tools out there. Built it just for my own use, honestly. So it's got good stuff out there. It'll be interesting to see once these free agent contracts start getting announced, I'll load those and we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see it. So thank you very much, Greg. And everybody out there, remember, big-legged waist benders don't deserve our draft capital, but they do deserve our love. Go Birds!
Go Birds.